Hey everybody, it's episode 183 of the Masterclass. My name is Cam Brennan and I am joined by my friend Dave Hogue. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
You know, all things being equal, I am doing okay, but man, stuff in the world, Dave, is just it is upsetting sometimes.
I
Most of
would
the
agree.
time, it seems like it's like if you want to look for bad news, you can find it. And
Yes.
so I think part of me longs for ignorance because it truly is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. Yes.
But at the same time, it seems irresponsible to chase after that and immature. Uh, but
Yeah.
I don't enjoy bad news or people doing terrible things to other people. Um,
I
but
agree.
that is the world we live in, and I think I just have to get better at processing when people do terrible things to other people and trying to focus on what God could do through a terrible situation. Um, it doesn't really involve me, The things that I'm thinking of over the last, whether they be recent, as in what you told me 20 minutes ago, or what has happened, over the last 2.5 centuries ish in this country and all over the world. Like most of it doesn't involve me directly, but man, when people do terrible things to other people for terrible reasons, it can really mess you up even if you're not directly involved. So
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine the depth of pain and trauma that it would the the level of pain and trauma that someone would endure if it directly affected them. Um, so it's be nice to other people. Not that that's going to solve the world's problems, but you just don't know what someone else is going through. You know what I mean? You don't know what they're
Hmm.
processing, what they're dealing with. Um,
Absolutely.
So showing some grace to people just might make them not lose their minds. That
Yes.
was wow. Listeners, we had a long talk before we recorded about some super nasty stuff that's happening that we're not going to get into because it's just
No.
depressing and sad. But I just be nice to people and show them some love in the name of Jesus, and you know it'll go a long way. It's not going to solve the problem. That won't happen until Jesus comes back, but man, it might help.
Yeah. And I would add, I would say just don't look the other way on things. Don't
Mm.
accept excuses. Um, I think when it comes down to it, we all know what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and I think there's an awful lot of people not stepping up and not speaking out when they should. And so I would just encourage people to do that as well.
Agreed. Well, on a lighter note, Dave,
Hmm.
both of our preferred universities have their men's basketball teams in the Elite Eight, which is exciting.
Well, I don't know if it's my preferred,
Well,
but
the one that you
I've
are
certainly
you
spent
are
more money
tied
there
to. Yeah, I was
than
about to say you are indebted to them.
and they are playing tonight. So
Yeah, it's Arkansas versus Baylor, and you are tied through some children to the University of Arkansas.
yes,
How you
both my
feeling?
daughters
Yeah, how
went
you
there.
feeling about that game, Dave?
My prediction is that Baylor's going to win,
See,
but I'm hopeful.
yeah, I'm hopeful too. I always thought Baylor was a bit overrated, but I'll be honest, I've watched them play once this year, so my opinion is purely I want
Well,
Michigan to
I
be.
think they are overrated,
All right.
and UCLA is. is clearly underrated.
Well, no, they had a terrible year. They lost some real bad games. They before they beat Michigan State in the play-in game, they had lost their
Mhm.
final 4 games of the season. So they have just
They
caught.
finally got it
Well,
together.
yeah, they have just caught fire at the absolutely perfect time. And obviously UCLA is, well, not obviously. It's not obvious. People might not care. They are playing the University of Michigan in the Elite Eight tomorrow, as of this recording, and they are my preferred university. And oh boy, I hope we beat them real good, real good. Because then if we win,
they really should.
Yeah, well, if Michigan wins, we have the pleasure of playing Gonzaga in the Final Four. So
Fun.
yeah, you never know what can happen. You never know. You never know. But
Very
boy,
true.
would I like to see them play Gonzaga. I think that would be an incredible game.
Yes, I would agree.
And then that would put Arkansas through, and they would play Houston because as of now, I think Houston's up on Oregon State. So
Yeah, I think they're pretty much have that one handled.
I like college basketball, Dave. I like it a lot.
Oh my gosh, they're like within 2 points.
Oh gosh, last time I checked, they were down like 12.
I know, it's 56-58 with under 3 minutes to go.
Oh my goodness. All right, we might have to do some real-time follow-up when the game's over.
That was kind of like,
And and the funny thing is by the time this actually gets published, we'll know who the national champion was like a week and a half prior to this actually coming out. Because, we record evergreen content that is generally not tied to current events, except for this part of this episode, which is totally tied to a current event. But hey, it is what it is. So, all that being said, yeah, things are happening in the world, both exciting and tragic. So that makes it a Monday, I think, Dave. I think that's what it makes it.
Just another day.
So, last time we were together, we did the first 10 verses of chapter 7, talking about the priestly order of Melchizedek.
This is true.
I wonder if he went by Melky to his friends.
I
don't know. I mean, he seems like he was the life of the party. So, sure, he was like real good at accents and stuff. Sorry, I'm obviously making fun, but like, it's so hard to picture what this dude and other people in scripture that are painted as like very serious and very pious, and like you only see like one sliver of their life, like Jesus.
Yeah, and not everybody's that way.
No, and I'm like, so was Jesus like a goofball, or was he like particularly good at like, I don't know, a sport or at drawing, or like like what were these super, like these people that are held up as, obviously Jesus stands alone in this category, but like what was Abraham like besides a guy that would sleep with his wife's concubine at her request? Like, bro, wrong choice. But like this guy Melchizedek, he's held up as like this just amazing before Jesus, one of a kind type of dude, and it's like, what was he like when he was 22? Apparently holy and wonderful, but like, what did he do for fun?
Yes.
I know it's a silly thing to think about, but
it is, God created that.
Yeah.
There's nothing sinful about that. That God created us to laugh, to have a sense of humor, to joke. And yeah, so there had to be some degree of that went on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that Jesus was a practical joker, right? Like he walked on water just to scare the crap out of the disciples. Like, that's why he did it. I'm going to get these guys so good. Like, and if that's sacrilegious, then okay, whatever. But like, mission accomplished, right? They thought he was a ghost and they started losing their minds. Or like when he was asleep on the boat, like, he did it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, enough of me pontificating about, who liked to do pull my finger jokes back then.
Yes.
It's not gonna earn me any invites to preach anywhere, so. Sometimes I'm a bit terrified that there's 183 episodes of me making stupid comments like this on the internet for anyone to discover.
Oh, trust me, I'm with you on that one.
But hopefully there's a couple good points in there too. Anyways, that being said, we are now going to finish chapter 7 and friends, it's a long couple of verses. We're doing 11 through 28, but it's a setup and an explanation, so it's worth reading through the whole thing to understand what the author is trying to communicate here. This would probably be really it would be beneficial for you to read along to this because it is so much. Obviously, if you're driving, please don't. Just remember everything Dave says, but it might be helpful for you to have that visual so that you can kind of catch the whole story a bit easier. So that's all I got to say, Dave.
All right. So, if you're not driving, open your Bibles or your Bible app to Hebrews 11, Hebrews 7, verse 11. And we are in the English Standard Version. Now, if perfection had been attainable through the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need would there have been for another priest to arise after the order of Melchizedek, rather than one named after the order of Aaron? For when there is change in the priesthood, there is necessarily a change in the law as well. For the one of whom these things are spoken belonged to another tribe, from which no one has ever served at the altar. For it is evident that our Lord was descended from Judah, and in connection with the tribe, Moses said nothing about priest. This becomes even more evident when another priest arises in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become a priest not on the basis of a legal requirement concerning bodily descent, but by the power of an indestructible life. For it is witness of him, you are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. For on the one hand, a former commandment is set aside because of its weakness and useless, for the law made nothing perfect. But on the other hand, a better hope is introduced, through which we draw near to God. And it was not without an oath, for those who formerly became priests were made such without an oath. But this one was made a priest with an oath by the one who said to him, "The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever." This makes Jesus the guarantor of a better covenant. The former priests were many in number because they were prevented by death from continuing in office, but he holds his priesthood permanently because he continues forever. Consequently, he is able to save to the uttermost those who draw near to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. For it was indeed fitting that we should have such a high priest, holy, innocent, unstained, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens. He has no need, like those high priests, to offer sacrifices daily for his own sins and then for those of the people, since he did this once for all when he offered up himself. For the law appoints men in their weakness as high priests, but the word of the oath, which came later than the law, appoints a son who has been made perfect forever.
Wonderful.
Yeah. As I was reading that, I was like, man, there's a lot in there.
There is,
and not just words, but there's a lot in there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's probably best to sum up the first part here pretty quick and then get to the more meaty conclusion.
I would agree
in all of that. So essentially, he's comparing the Levitical priests, right? The descendants of Aaron, Moses' brother. So Melchizedek came back. He was back in Genesis with Abraham. Fast forward to Moses and the Israelites and Aaron and the priesthood that was then dependent on descendancy. Are you a part of this tribe? Then you're going to be a priest. And so it was all descendants of Aaron. And he's then comparing, well, if Jesus is now a high priest and he's in the order of Melchizedek, that is a shift from the Levitical priesthood back to the priesthood of Melchizedek. And it says in verse 12, for when there is a change in the priesthood, there is necessarily a change in the law as well. And we know for certain that when Jesus came, not only did he change the law, he fulfilled the entire thing. So it's like one of those sentences in the Bible that's a complete understatement. For when there's a change in the priesthood, there is necessarily a change in the law as well. And the change we're talking about here isn't just like now you can go 40 and you used to be able to go 35, right?
Yeah.
It is a complete fundamental shift in how God interacts with his people, what he expects from his people, how they are told to live, because the entirety of the law has been fulfilled by what Jesus accomplished on the cross and by his resurrection. So, by calling out this change in the high priesthood from the Levitical priests to Jesus as a high priest of the order of Melchizedek, like this statement is it's like Jesus when he claimed to be God in the Gospels and how like upset the Pharisees and all of those people got, right? Because they understood the weight of what was being said. It's kind of lost on us a little bit because we're so far removed culturally speaking.
Hmm.
But like this concept is massive, right? And it's why Jesus got murdered by the established priesthood because it meant that what they were doing was no longer necessary. And guess what, Dave? People in power like to stay in power.
Yes, they do.
Did you know that?
I did. Yeah.
Well, it's because you're a smart man, Dave. So, is there anything that you want to say about that first section that I missed, or that has dawned upon your wise mind?
uh, I don't think I do have anything to add. Um, yeah, I definitely think, like you said, there's just that shift in the traditional thinking, which is consistent with what we see Jesus doing. And yeah, so we've arrived at this point of it goes beyond a biological lineage as to who is a priest and how they serve. So yeah, I'm good.
Right on. So, moving on, it says in verse 17, "For it is witnessed of him, you are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek," and that is quoting Psalm 110, verse 4. For those of you that are interested. Uh, and then he carries on. In 19, a better hope is introduced through which we draw near to God. And this theme of there being hope in drawing near to God is something that is a theme in Hebrews. Again, it draws me back to chapter 4. It says, "Since therefore we have a great high priest who can sympathize with our weaknesses, we can, you know, draw near to the throne of mercy in our time of need." Um, that's just such an anchor point in this book that anytime I see this, like, hope through which we can draw near, like it just is always brought back up, which is I think really important for us to remember because oftentimes when I'm in my times of need, I don't want to draw near to God because there's shame and guilt that I'm still feeling. Even though I know I shouldn't be feeling it because it's covered, there's still that thing. So I just need that encouragement, right? To just draw near, draw near, draw near. All right. Carrying on. So we'll get to these last like 6 verses, I think. 7 verses. If I can do my math correctly. That'd be 22 through 28. We're not skipping over the rest of this stuff because it's not important. It's actually really important, but we want to Paul or the Paul, ha, he didn't write this book. Uh, the author just does such a good job of summing all of it up that I think it's worth focusing on that. So, verse 22, this makes Jesus the guarantor of a better covenant. And that, while a very short sentence, Dave,
Mm-hmm.
whew, that
Right.
carries some weight. Because
Yeah,
guess what he's
'cause
telling every Jewish person on the planet? And he just says it straight. Like, this makes Jesus, he's the one that guarantees a better covenant.
yeah.
Jesus came and has said, I have a better covenant, a new covenant, a better thing for you now. And I can see why they didn't like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just a fan of like these super simple statements that in the Bible that just cover so much ground. Like when Paul explains the whole gospel in a single sentence. I just it frustrates me because how are used that good. But it confirms to me that words are really, really powerful and words mean things for a reason. And and we communicate through words for a reason, right? God spoke things into existence. God gave us his word to study and to live by. And so when I come across these just really brief sentences that mean so much and have such large implications, it's like I kind of wonder if it's like God just having a little fun, you know? Like and maybe that's it's a reach or whatever, yeah, maybe. But people can be very, very long winded and verbose and use fancy words like verbose to make themselves look smart and sound smart and all in well spoken and eloquent and things like that. But nothing is more effective than wisdom in brevity, I think. If you can communicate something true, deep, profound, wise in a very short amount of words, it is way more powerful than a long winded speech, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I would absolutely agree.
And so I just love finding these bits of the Bible where it's just like, boom, one sentence means like everything to what God is accomplishing. And those really stand out to me and hit home because it carries so much more power and weight to me. Hopefully that made some sort of sense. See, I was super long winded, and now it's not powerful and didn't make any sense because I just couldn't shut up.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, people that have listened to the show for any period of time know that I just I am the opposite of this in many ways. I just and I repeat myself and I repeat myself and I repeat myself. Gotta let it be, Dave. Anyways, carrying on. Verse 23 says, the former priests were many in number because they were prevented by death from continuing in office. But he, meaning Jesus, holds his priesthood permanently because he continues forever. That's a good one, Dave. Never thought about it that way before. Because death is just such like, a part of life. Well, of course they can't be priests forever
Mm-hmm.
because they're gonna die.
But Jesus can.
But I never thought about it in terms of
No.
that, right?
No.
Like I never that juxtaposition of, well, they can't be priests forever because they're gonna die, but Jesus can be because he conquered death. It's like, yeah, that makes total sense. But man, when you say it like that, it really does help solidify that Jesus is in his own class, as if I needed reminding of that, which I do most days. So thank you, author of Hebrews, for that. But yeah, just the comparison of how Jesus is fundamentally different. Though he was man, he's also God. So he can continue his priesthood forever because he's conquered death. And that leads right into verse 25. Consequently, he's able to save to the uttermost those who draw near to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. So he's not just living forever for the sake of living forever. He's doing it so that he can constantly make intercession for us, which, man, that's good news, Dave.
Yeah, and that has always been one of those things for me that I just am blown away by the fact that, and it's a consistent message of, Jesus interceding on our behalf. And yeah, it is good news. It's incredibly powerful. And I don't think there's anybody I'd want more interceding for me on my behalf than Jesus. So, and yeah, it's clearly in the nature of, the essence of who he is that he does this. So yeah, incredibly powerful, incredibly cool that Jesus would do that for us. So
Yeah, it's just one of those ones where I'm just like, why?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know he's got better stuff that he could be doing. Certainly less depressing and more enjoyable stuff.
But is it better? I
Oh,
mean, is
no,
that
yeah, that's thank you.
sorry?
No, 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 no. I'm not being sarcastic. I was being a bit sarcastic, but you
Yeah,
called me
no, I
on it,
know.
and I appreciate it because I don't need to make light of that. I shouldn't. Um,
Yeah, and it's just an incredible thing because you think about that, like you take any just prominent person, leader, whether political, in the church, an influencer, whatever you want to say. And I don't think, I don't naturally think of anybody that's in a power of position, a power of influence, using that to, in essence, go before God and petition him on my behalf. And that is just such an incredible thing when you think about that's what Jesus does, because nobody else really does that.
mhm.
Maybe your mom or your grandma, but certainly not people of position, and at least not the vast majority of people of position don't choose to use that to uh, not just benefit the lives of others, but truly enter into a place of, um, going before God and pleading um, for our status in terms of just how we are before Him. And I don't know. It's the words aren't flowing for me, but just that it's just such a powerful thing of Him just going before God, and He has influence too.
Mm,
I mean, he's heard. He's not just saying empty words. He has influence. He has power.
that's a great point.
Um, and so that's just such an incredible thing, because so often in our finite mortal world, that's not how people choose to use their power and influence. But again, we serve a good God, so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Carrying on in verse 26, it says, "For it was indeed fitting that we should have such a great high priest, holy, innocent, unstained, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens. He has no need, like those high priests, to offer sacrifices daily, first for his own sins and then for those of the people, since he did this once for all when he offered up himself." Again, that's
Yeah.
a one sentence explanation of how Jesus fulfilled the entire law, how he replaced the entire sacrificial system by one act.
Yes. And
And it's
and and has the qualifications to do it.
oh yeah, exactly, right? Holy, innocent, unstained, separated from sinners and exalted above the heavens. Yeah. That's a great call out, Dave. Absolutely. And what so I guess what's really kind of like the picture I have in my mind, right, is like you see like in the Bibles that have like, renderings of what the temple looked like, just how big it was and the whole sacrificial system and all the multitudes of different sacrifices for different things, different, festivals, different occasions and the level of detail that was involved and just the sheer number of animals that were killed, for the different kinds of offerings and just the ecosystem that developed around the sacrificial system. And it was like this its own like world unto itself around the temple.
Yeah.
And one guy who happened to be holy, innocent, unstained, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens.
You know.
But one guy did one unthinkable thing and replaced centuries, if not millennia, of a system that, like I said, just it would what would be a good I don't even know if we need an illustration, right? But just think about that. The entire sacrificial system that had gone on for ages in the temple,
Hmm.
everything that this people group had come to know about sin and how it was atoned for and everything that God did to point out the sin in their lives in one action, all of it was replaced and finished and fulfilled and finalized and ended.
Yeah.
I mean, think about like imagine one person like Jesus did one thing today and none of us ever had to go back to work again.
Yeah.
It was a full-time job for the priests to run the
Right.
sacrificial
Oh yeah,
system
exactly.
and all the rituals that they had to do so that they could stay clean and the sacrifices they had to commit for themselves and then for other it's just like you're no longer employed here.
Yeah.
Like we
And it's a
don't need you anymore.
lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a
But just think
complete
about that.
lifestyle. All yeah. Just absolutely consume them and who they were and no longer needed.
Yeah. Jesus kind of
That is
fired them.
crazy.
For the law appoints men in their weaknesses, or sorry, for the law appoints men in their weakness as high priests, but the word of the oath, which came later than the law, appoints a son who has been made perfect forever. And again, right, there's just the juxtaposition between the human nature of the Levitical priests and the divine nature of Jesus as the final high priest, that he is able to replace the entire order of the Levites because he's been made perfect forever by God.
Yeah.
So it's not just like he showed up with a whole bunch of money or with a better college degree, right? He, like it says, he's holy, innocent, unstained, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens. And for that reason, he is able to replace the entire system that had been established solely to point out repeatedly and in excruciating detail that people are sinners.
Yeah. And he
I
made
don't
it simpler, easier. I mean, it's not like it got complicated. It was, I mean, it really, I mean, you're talking about, and I guess in essence, it should still be a lifestyle as the words are coming out of my mouth, but it's not a complicated lifestyle. It doesn't require the constant, well, at least what I perceive to be constant effort. I'm sure at some point it became habit for them. It became routine. Um, but yeah, it's still a lifestyle, but there's an element of um, stepping away from the routine, stepping away from the just you know systematic process of all of this, and it being more about a relationship, it being more about living and being you know fully present. And even as I say that, it kind of, even I think about our conversation as we began this of, you know, human beings have always had a sense of humor. Human beings have always enjoyed, uh, joking and laughing and being in relationship and that sort of thing. So I guess my point being is, you know, it did completely change the game. Um, but I think in all of this, I take the human element out of it. And I don't know because I wasn't a firsthand observer to all of this, of what was truly happening. But I do know that Jesus made it a better way, and we should be incredibly grateful for that.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, friends, turns out Jesus is pretty awesome.
Who knew?
Well, sometimes we just need to be reminded, right? Like
Yeah.
there's
Oh, absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
reading Shaped by the Gospel by Tim Keller with a group of folks from my church.
Uh huh.
And it's all about what the gospel is, what the gospel isn't, what the gospel affects, and then how we can have, how we can uh, let the gospel renew our hearts and our minds, and therefore our church, our communities, our cities, that sort of stuff. And it's one of those things. He spends 3 chapters talking about the very basics of what the gospel is, like 65 pages, and it's really easy to be like, "Oh yeah, I know what the gospel is," blah blah, and like say it like that, like it's not the hugest deal that's ever happened to ever, right? And it's so easy for us that to become comfortable or numb to something that we hear or see over and over and over again, and easily forget the craziness, the impact, the power, the strength, the audacity of something, right? Familiarity breeds contempt is the saying, right? And in some cases it just breeds boredom if it's not aggressive, right? And I just think sometimes it's just really nice to be blindsided by the truth of the gospel and the truth of who Jesus is and the truth of how amazing God's willingness to forgive, the lengths that he will go to. Like we were joking earlier about, doesn't Jesus probably have better stuff to do? And you made the very prescient point. Well, does he have better things to do? And the answer is obviously no, because if he had better things to do, he
He
wouldn't
would
have
do them.
shown up. He
Yeah.
wouldn't have shown up and died. Like if he
True.
had better things to do, he wouldn't have chosen that terrible, terrible thing to go through. But he did because he chooses to have a relationship with his people, and he chooses to want to set it right because that is the best thing that he chooses to do, is to show us his glory and to show us his mercy and to show us the beauty of true relationship, and to want to restore all of those things to their right and perfect way so that we can all enjoy it together. And I'll say it again, man. God's pretty awesome.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
think that's a good place to slam this baby and park. What do you say?
I'm all for that. Yep.
Awesome. Well, friends, thank you so much for joining us for this 183rd episode of the Masterclass podcast. My name is still Cam. His name is still Dave, and we are so glad that you, care to listen and let us take up, some of your time and your brain space, and just appreciate it very much. As usual, folks, show notes are in your podcast app of choice, or you can go to supermegacorp.net/masterclass/183. Click on the links for the cool stuff, ways to get in contact, say, hey, what's up, all that stuff in there as well. And Dave, I think I just need a woo pig suey to end the show.
Yeah, no.
Oh boy. All right. Well, see you next time. I tried.
Bye.